I got 1900. We're going to get the meeting started. We'll say silence for something with your personal cell phone devices, stuff like that. So we're in the interruption.
It's to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, nation, there's a need of justice for all.
That? Yes, no, I've got it. All right. I'm sorry, new board members. Going to come out front. Thank you. Okay, one of you guys go cut that one, please. Good.
Yes.
Okay. Raise your right hand, please. I state your name.
I, Ledger,
You solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
Constitution of the state, laws thereof,
the laws thereof,
and the policies of Plum River Fire and Rescue
and the policies of Plum River Fire and Rescue.
Director.
I will faithfully discharge the duties of the God.
Welcome aboard, gentlemen. Glad you're here.
Good evening, Kelly.
Okay. Okay, next item we're going to go into is closed executive session. But it's not part of that, please leave the room. Oh, sorry, this will be to consult with legal counsel for us 192.660
For the capital.
So it's public meeting. Okay. Yes. We'll be going in a minute. We're waiting for two more people to come back in. Yeah, we're gonna need Rob. It's his report. See, they're here. Problem, you good? Okay, all set. All right. So 2044 reconvening our public. We've gone as far as we can in executive session with the legal discussions that we've had. I thank everybody for their patience. Right now I'm going to turn forward to Rob. So if you remember, for those of you who know, our June 30th meeting was a public meeting that talked about our forensic audit that's going on. And Rob is here tonight to give us an update on where we're at today. And I'll turn forward to you, Tim.
Great, thanks, Kelly. Thank you. I think Aiken has some opening comments.
Okay.
I think it's appropriate just to set the context. So that if there's any question about what Rob and I and others understand to be the case, if we can cover a couple of key points and you can ask questions about those initially and then else there is that you all want to hear. As we made clear in the June meeting, we are not taking the position that the Moody report is exempt from public disclosure by virtue of the public interest and because it's not legal advice. So that will orchestrate. The first point that needs to be very clear is the forensic audit report that was presented on June 30 is an initial preliminary report that was presented on June 30, not because it was done and not because all of the information was available, but because the predecessor board wanted us update and the status as of 30, their last day in office, if the report was not otherwise complete. So it's, for reasons I'm going to describe, that's exactly what it is. It's a preliminary report based on available evidence as of June 30. The board has retained me to manage this process. And the points that I think everybody needs to understand are these. The district attorney, including the folks in the DA's office at this moment, because there's been a change in the cast of characters there. The county prosecutor and Oregon State Police appreciate the district's willingness to commission the audit to account for public funds and to assist in the determination of whether a crime may have occurred. That's the first point. Second, the board wanted this forensic audit to determine financial management and accounting and record keeping weaknesses at the district that may have put the district at risk, and to get out in front of any developments as a board and as stewards of public resources and public trust. The board felt that was their responsibility, and that this forensic audit is the thing that would enable them, the vehicle that would enable them to do that and to be seen in the community in this circumstance as doing the right thing. So that's how we got to this point. Again, the audit is and continues to be incomplete because the records are incomplete. Rob Moody and his staff have addressed only what they are able to address, given the records that they have. And there are many records that will become available that are not yet available. Next big point, the district attorney and the Oregon State Police, over which, by the way, none of us have any control, are engaged in an ongoing criminal investigation. They control it. We've got nothing to do with it other than the district has been cooperating in every way possible. The district attorney has continued to issue grand jury subpoenas. The state police and the district attorney are gathering records of evidence. And as I explained at the June 30 meeting, that part of the delay and part of the difficulty is that when you receive a grand jury subpoena, you've got 30 days to respond to it. And so there's nothing the DA can do or anybody else can do to get the information that is required to create some greater certainty and finalize this report. And the district's only involvement with state police and the DA is the forensic audit analysis benefit that process derives from what this board has undertaken, the prior board has undertaken to do. So moving forward, as information from these grand jury subpoenas goes to OSP, they will either deal with it, or if it's relevant to close the forensic report, they'll upload that information to Moody and he will continue to, he'll, the audit will get finalized as that information comes in. And finally, I think it's important for everybody to be on the same page with respect to what that report says and what it doesn't say. And the points I would highlight for emphasis, just so we're all on the same page starting out before Rob gets into this. I think his report says in more than one place and on multiple different ways, that poor accounting practices at the district prior to the arrival of Chief Sanchez and Chief Medina have been clearly established by compelling evidence. I don't think, those are my words, not Bob Moody's, but I don't think there's any room to debate that. Rob Moody's report does not determine whether a crime was committed, whether there's been any criminal wrongdoing. Or it doesn't, there's no evidence of that I'm aware of. Next point that everybody needs to be really clear about is that criminal misconduct, if any, is within the purview of the Oregon State Police in its ongoing investigation. As I said to the board in June, now, any investigation properly conducted incriminates or exonerates. And whatever the facts are, that's what is Bob Moody will determine. I think with that, Rob's here to say whatever he will in light of that and answer any questions that the board may have.
Before we move on to him, I have a question for you. Would you please clarify? You said records not yet available. Can you clarify what you mean by that? Because I'm armchair quarterbacking this, but I'm also looking at it going, if somebody comes in and says, we would like to see records, all stuff like that, you hand a box or boxes or whatever like that and say, this is everything. So what do you mean by records not yet available?
I think Rob is in a way better position than I am to answer that question both most accurately and more succinctly. So if it's okay with you, I'd ask Rob to start out by addressing what we have and what we don't, and anything he'd like to say about why we don't.
Great.
Thanks, Aiken. Members of the board, thanks for your time tonight. I know that it's been a long meeting and I can honestly, I'm looking forward to telling my wife that I've sat this long without saying anything. She'll never believe it. But to answer your question, the district has provided a lot of boxes. Okay, they are secured in an office, in our offices in Tualatin. There's a lot there. There's a lot that isn't there. And for example, we'll talk about some of the specifics. But Aiken mentioned the subpoenas. There have been subpoenas of banking records There have been subpoenas issued for audit work papers. There have been subpoenas issued for additional records from the PERS retirement system. When those are the things that are not yet available because the subpoenas have not run their course. And there's others, but that's an example of the types of things that we're talking about. I want to be really clear that the district has been incredibly responsive with providing anything that we've asked for if they had it. So, as I went back and did work through the credit card stuff or through the banking records or through the payroll records, there were payroll registers that just don't exist or that we couldn't find. Those may show themselves at some point, but as of right now, they're just not there. So those are the kinds of things that we were talking about. Does that answer your question?
Yes, so you're not waiting on anything from us, you're waiting on
That's correct.
subpoenas to run its course coming from other agencies to follow up and bring up their end of the bargain.
That's correct. So
Okay, thank you.
Are you saying that there's documentation missing that we're missing as well, or?
I believe I've been through the vast majority. I won't say that I've opened every box, but I've at least looked through them.
And so what would you say the major stuff that you're currently missing?
I think that'll be more clear if I touch on kind of what the main areas of what our work were. But if I had to narrow it down just to answer your question in broad brush, it would be receipts and documentation in support of credit card charges.
And what's the timeline that you're missing those from? Like,
Everything subsequent to October of 2020,
so everything that
2016 through 2020,
you're missing, every single.
there is not a receipt to be found.
Okay, and did you guys, like Chief Knight, you were here during that period, Craig? Where was the receipts typically kept? Because I know you've been stated in the newspaper saying that Mayor was pretty good about collecting receipts.
So I will receive, if I purchase something.
Yeah.
Purchase order was filled out.
Yeah.
A receipt was attached, a credit card statement was used by a credit card. I gave it to the finance director,
Okay, and so that was typically stored in the admin building or,
wherever the finance stored, it. I have no idea.
okay. And then who all has access to that?
At the time would be the finance director. I didn't have access to it.
Okay, so from then, so basically just the admin building is where that's.
They're in the archive room, they have
Where's the account?
LPTC.
That's in the LBTC. Okay, locks or something.
Yes, lock up.
That's a long, it is security funds. In my time there, I know as a firefighter, I didn't know any of that stuff. When I think I filled out one purchase order, so I was there too for a long time, but I turned that in. So, awesome. I just wondered, figure out where some of that stuff,
It's a fair question.
okay.
So let me start with just kind of some general comments. What we found throughout our work was a variety of internal control weaknesses within the district with respect to financial reporting and accounting. And when I talk about internal controls, the people normally think about bank reconciliations and stuff like that as being an internal control. It's much broader than that. It speaks to supervision and oversight, effective review of documentation in support of expenditures, effective segregation of duties between the initiation of a transaction and the approval of that transaction, effective just review of financial information either by chief officers or the board as a control mechanism to question when things look out of whack.
What I'm listening to. This is what I'm listening to now.
I wanted to, something Aiken said with, and he's correct, the report doesn't definitively say there was wrongdoing. Okay, we talked a lot about fraud. Fraud's a difficult concept because to prove fraud, it requires that you prove intent on the part of the party that perpetrates the fraud. I liken this to the fraud triangle, which is a lot like the fire triangle. You know, the fire triangle says if you've got heat, fuel, and oxygen, I'm gonna remember this because I used to do this. But if you take away any one of those things, the fire goes out, right? It's the same with the fraud triangle. The three sides are opportunity, rationalization, and motivation. If you take away any one of those, the incidence of fraud is greatly diminished. Now, you can't do anything about rationalization or motivation because those are in somebody's head.
Why did we stop at 2020?
Oh, that's a great, let me come back to that in just a second. That's a great question. But opportunity is the one side of the fraud triangle that we as a district have any control over. You can reduce that opportunity through a strong structure of internal control. To answer your question, we didn't stop at 2020. From October of 2020 forward through 2022, we had some documentation in support of credit card charges, but it was incomplete.
So going forward, we continue to do this audit, you'll eventually more thorough. From 2016 all the way until 2023. At the end of that fiscal year.
Yeah, I mean, I think the scope has yet to be defined for what we want to continue to do.
I would say as a board, I think we would all like it up to present.
Well, we'll make a decision on that. We'll bring this up for the new business and probably that, so for more decision.
So, and I assume you've all seen the report, had a chance to read it. So I don't want to read it to you because I don't think that's a good use of your time. But I will go through and hit on kind of the major areas of our findings. So the work that we did initially over bank transfers, that's one of the areas that we always look at in a forensic type engagement. I guess, let me back up. I didn't really introduce myself. My name's Rob Moody. I'm a partner with Marina and Company, and our firm does strictly governmental work. That's been our background for the last 40 years. And I'm a consulting partner there. And this is the type of work I've been doing for about 30 years as well. So, but we always take a look at bank transfers where we look at to see if every transfer out of a district account went into another district account. Or if the wire transfers that were made were appropriate, say for bond debt payments. We did our work there. We didn't find anything out of the ordinary there. So bank transfers tied out, which is a good thing. Okay. We did become aware of 2 additional accounts or the potential for 2 additional accounts that were listed in the address, the physical address of the fire district, but not in the fire district's name. Records as of yet, they're the subject of a subpoena.
You know how much money in there?
Pardon?
You know how much money?
We know nothing about those accounts. We have no visibility into them yet. So that brings me to credit card charges. The challenge here was the types of charges that we were seeing. And without any supporting documentation, we were unable to determine if they were valid or not. Some of them have an appearance that would question the applicability of a business purpose in a fire district. I'll just say that. There's a lot of charges with very little documentation. There was large amounts of charges. $702,000 over the course of 6 years, which is a lot.
Orders? Was purchase orders with these charges?
Only I saw some of that from October of 2020. January of 2022. So some, but not all, even of those ones. And a lot of that detail is in the report. There were a number of credit cards issued by the district to several different folks at different levels of the organization. Multiple credit cards issued to some individuals.
Can I ask you one question real fast?
Yes, sir.
Who gets to sign the checks?
I don't know who the signers are for the district.
It's done via resolution and the board approves it. So there's a resolution you guys can have later. I can give you we actually have to update it now that there's new board members. So at the next meeting, you'll be getting an update.
So who's the top signature?
On which check?
Pick one. The first page.
I believe.
I don't know what that is.
Can I look at the check?
No, I can't see it my far line.
So I think I know where you might.
That'd be me.
with this.
That's it.
Where you might be going with this is if these credit card statements were paid, why didn't somebody look at the check or look at the documentation before signing the check? They never had the opportunity. None of these statements, credit card statements, were paid with a check. They were all set up,
ACH withdrawals.
they were all set up as auto pay when the credit card accounts were established.
So we
So it
should,
bypassed
do we have
the
a controller?
control of the.
Do we have a controller here that can balance, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you have to have this.
So,
I'm gonna digress.
no, I appreciate where you're going with that. So there's a control that the board saw a list of expenditures paid by check. This was outside of that control.
Who's the current, financial manager there?
That's me. I pulled the credit cards when I got here.
Okay. So now, every single time somebody uses the card, we're doing checks and balances.
We have POs electronically, so anybody can see them. We have all the records.
Okay. Next area was payroll. We tried to do kind of a three-part comparison to tie down payroll records and payroll numbers. We were unable to do that. So we took payroll registers that we had available, and we had 1 year that we had a full population of payroll registers to work with. We took and tried to reconcile those payroll registers first to the quarterly tax reports filed with the federal government, the Form 941s. We were unable to do that. There were items that were reported in the federal forms that were not reflected in the payroll registers that we had. So there were just unreconcilable differences based on the information we had available. Sorry, I don't mean to keep staring at you. So that's one thing. Then we tried to take the payroll registers and reconcile them to the general ledger. And again, the expectation is all of this payroll information comes from the same source and would all be the same.
Sorry, isn't there shouldn't we be doing a yearly audit every year with
I'll
reconciliation
get to that.
every year?
I'll get to that. So we were unable to tie the payroll registers to what was reflected in the general ledger. There were things reflected in the general ledger for which we had no payroll register reports. For example, in December 2019, from the general ledger reports, it appeared there was a special payroll on December 15th that was titled longevity pay. I didn't have a payroll register that reflected that, so we have no idea what the basis for those payments were. There's, hang on just a second, and we found no basis in the employee handbook or in the union contract for payment of longevity pay. We don't know who authorized it, who approved it, or if it was approved.
So what year was that longevity paid?
December of 2019,
And what contract were you looking at?
the contract that was in place at that time.
Okay, I believe it should be in there. We should have easy access working with the union to look at previous contracts. That should be something that pretty easily. So I believe they have records, or they should have records of all the contracts we passed. So that one shouldn't be too bad. Okay. That was something when I was a union member here, I think that was an art contract at that point, even not that long. Yeah, it was dollar amount. 35 years or something.
Moving past the attempts to reconcile payroll between those three data points. We also looked at PERS, and there were a number of PERS misclassifications based on information confirmed with PERS and compared against the district's payroll records. There were, I believe, 5 individuals who were registered with PERS as PERS police and fire personnel. We don't meet the criteria to be classified with PERS as police and fire. They should have been classified as general service employees.
Who made
So-
that classification?
The administrator for the district at that time was the only person who has access to make those changes.
How did you get those records?
We were able to get them from PERS.
Would that be a contract thing deal then?
No,
No.
this was just,
Right. Someone has to say yes.
there was no supporting documentation about who made those changes, when or why. All it is it's a drop-down box on the website that 1 or 2 people had access to. So the issue with that, you might say, so what's the issue with that? One, the contribution rates by the district are different, whether you're police and fire or if you're general service. That's not where the real impact is, though. The real impact comes to those individuals who are misclassified after they retire in terms of the benefits availed on those people once they retire.
And you're referring to the calculation rate, correct?
That's correct. Because police, pardon?
Have we paid any of those out yet?
I believe that potentially one of these people is retired.
So
It's
basically.
like 2 of these people one of these people has completely withdrawn their money from PERS. And another has requested them.
What account on PERS? 'Cause there's 2 different sides of PERS.
Exactly, and that's part
I
of
don't know
the
how
issue as well.
PERS controls whether you pull in or pull out. It's not up to the employee or that person. PERS says you can take this money or not. I don't think.
No, that's actually not true. Because I've withdrawn my money from PERS
Okay.
from a previous employer.
PERS or like a 457.
No, it was PERS.
But you have to retire.
Well, don't you have to?
If you're not vested, or even if you are vested, you can withdraw your portion of it.
Okay.
So there's some issues around the PERS classifications and, it gets really complicated in terms of who's tier 1, tier 2, who's officer and how that all works. I'd be happy to explain that, but in the interest of time, maybe that's a topic for another day. The longevity pay we talked about, we looked at workers' compensation renewals. Again, to reconcile payroll records, salary amounts to the amounts reported to save for workers' comp. And we were unable to do that. We had about $1 million delta in one reporting period.
Was the payroll through a company? Or how, like? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I get paid through Paycor or, you know what I mean? So is that stuff through a company?
I'd have to go back and look, but we had a payroll register that we were working off of. That was the district's payroll register.
So we've looked at what the district had, but not maybe what the company is showing. So we might be able to clear that out still,
Potentially.
like going to the company that you used.
Yeah, potentially. So I can't tell you.
No, that's good.
Have you requested that yet?
We have not requested anything from a payroll carrier at this point.
Is that something we should be taking a note of right now to make sure we add in this,
Essentially,
this
potentially.
Committee?
And then the last thing that we looked at, we obtained a box that had a file full of 1099s in it. And so Form 1099, you've all received them for interest, right? Interest paid by banks to you. The district receives a 1099 at the end of any calendar year for payments made to them by insurance companies. So an insurance company will issue for the total amount paid to the district. The district typically doesn't have to do with anything with those, right? Because you're not a tax paying district. Most of those 1099s weren't even opened. They were still just sealed in the envelopes. They came in and shoved in a file, which is not uncommon. What we did was try to take the 1099s from a sample of those insurance companies and tie them back to the the cash receipts records that we had for the district. We were unable to do that for any items in our samples save for two.
Those receipts, the same receipts that are missing, that would have been in that admin.
We didn't even try to tie to receipts. We tried to tie to the cash receipts journals that were for entries made into the journal. So I guess in tying this up, our conclusions are that at a minimum, it was just really sloppy accounting.
Or missing document.
That is those are not mutually exclusive. Because there is a requirement, to maintain documentation, accounting records under the Secretary of State or the state's archive requirements. Things like accounts payable have to be kept for 3 years, et cetera. None of the stuff we were looking at probably should have gone through any kind of destruction cycle. Payroll records get kept forever. So at a minimum, it was really sloppy. In our experience, and I've been doing this a while, I've dealt with several frauds, dealt with some frauds at fire districts. I've not seen anything quite like this. Just the preponderance of everything that was either missing or out of sorts, however you want to characterize it, doesn't paint a nice picture for the district.
No, but it's also not, I think that at the end of the day, without having all of the evidence, all the stuff, and having the stuff in the payroll, and have the PERS, have everything else like that, I feel like this is premature to me, to be honest. I don't know why we're, get all the information, get everything before we even have this conversation.
I don't disagree with you. And we started off the conversation by saying
It's just frustrating.
it's preliminary but we were asked to present the findings that we had to this point. I don't know if there are payroll registers out there somewhere. I don't know where they are.
I don't know either, but I mean, there's gotta be, in this 2023, man, it's pretty sure that we can find records, we can find all this. And
But that won't help us reach a conclusion about 2017
2008,
or 18
what about
or
19?
19.
What about 20, what about 21, what about
Right,
22?
right. The 2023 records will speak to 2023.
But don't we have like individual yearly audits? Like. we
Okay,
have
so let me address your question on the audit. Yes, you have had an audit every fiscal year by an independent CPA firm.
Who's that?
The firm over the last several years, most recently, the name of the firm is Polly Rogers. Okay, based in China. We have subpoenaed, or not me, the district attorney has subpoenaed the audit working papers. When we requested those working papers directly from the audit firm, we were denied.
Because the DA because the DA has them?
Nope, because they didn't want to get it to us. So that's when we requested the subpoena.
So do we have them now?
No,
Just waiting for them.
that's correct. At the point that we receive those working papers, we'll be able to do an assessment based on my professional experience of whether or not the auditors follow professional standards in the performance of their audit. That's the conversation that Aiken and I have had about the scope of that review. Is that correct?
That's with me.
Yeah,
That's correct.
okay.
What's the, what would you, I know we gotta wait for the subpoenas and everything. Can you give an approximate like ballpark timeline on? Any of this?
Once we receive the information, I would say it could take 60 days to go through this stuff. And that's pretty much full time in it.
You say working papers, you're asking for their notes, their stuff?
So as an audit firm, you're required to document the testing and the work that you do in performing an audit. And it's those work. It's more than notes, it's calculations, it's documentation that the audit was properly reviewed and supervised and a lot of that.
And that would also have the final report that's given the board.
We have those. We have the financial statements.
Okay, but there's also, there's usually a report of what their strengths and weaknesses are.
To my knowledge, there was never a material weakness letter or a management letter issued to the board of this district.
Yeah, there was.
Aside-
They were brought to the board usually every year, and this is what we did great on, this is what we found this year, and this is what we were weak on. It was usually brought to the board. I was here until 2019.
I haven't seen those.
Okay, they were available.
That is your recollection that the board was advised that there were material weaknesses year after year by your CPA?
They always found something every year, and every year they're presented to the board, the final report. Here's the areas she would tell them that we need to maybe make a correction. We need to, add an extra person on checking or overseeing this, but there was usually always one item, two, there were just things they recommended change. They weren't, I wouldn't say bad grades, they were just recommendations. That's what I'm asking, is when you get their notes or their work on it, if you also get that final report that's provided.
That's what we've asked. We asked for them initially, as Rob indicated, they didn't want to produce any of that, and then Jeff on here subpoenaed all of it.
Any chance they, first I have two questions. What's the retention timeline that they were supposed to keep those? Like there should sound like correct. Serving sessions. And then my second question, I was blanking on it now. I'll go back. Anything else?
No, thank you for your time, for your attention.
It was gonna be, would it be possible, would those like strengths and weaknesses be in possible previous minutes from board meetings in the past?
Yeah, if we go back, it might be.
Okay, so maybe we can find that in our personal.
That'd be great.
Yeah, if you have records go back, I don't have them.
Well, we might be able to find them, or I don't know. Who knows?
So thank you.
No,
That,
thank
that
you.
concludes my comments, unless there are other questions.
So, thank you. And I agree, I'll reiterate kind of what Ryan said. It is very preliminary and stuff like that, but I think it was important for both the executive session and for your for tonight, so that the new board members are up to date with the rest of us, so that when we go forward, we can make good decisions with the information we have to time, moving the district forward. And I appreciate your guys' time. Okay, so we're moving on. We have a couple changes to the agenda. The first thing we need to accomplish is, we cleared off for this, is election of officers. For the board, yes. With this time, I'll open it up to nominations for chair.
I vote Kelly Miles.
Nomination, was there a second?
I'll second it.
On that right there. Are there any other nominations for chair? Those nominations in for chair. One person, all in favor? That's aye. All opposed? Aye. Yes, all right. All right, this time we'll open up nominations for vice chair.
I'll second that.
I have a nomination and a second for Ryan as vice chair. Is there any other nominations? Hearing none, close that. One person again, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Good. And then last one, I'll open up nominations for secretary treasurer or secretary.
I'll nominate Rick Fletcher.
Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
Any other nominations?
Yes, I'll nominate Gary Hudson.
I'll second that. We have two. Any other nominations? Hearing none. Nominations are closed. So, all in favor of Ricky Butcher, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
For the second one, because it's already three. It's new. Good. All right, now we're gonna move to public comment. Jeff Upton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your time. The new board members, welcome. God bless you and full speed ahead. It's going to be a challenge for you, you know it, but you have the guts to run for it, and we, the taxpayers, we appreciate it very much, okay? I would request that this board contact the administrative staff at the office and tell them that when they receive a certified letter, don't refuse it, accept the darn thing, okay? Secondly, I've been trying for about a month to get a copy of the manual of common procedures or whatever it is that you have listed. None of the fire stations have it. I went down to the office, they couldn't find it. So I would like a copy of it if it's not gonna cost me $1,000. Also, I think every fire station or every place of business in this fire district should have a copy of that. Thank you very much.
Next on the list, Rhonda Melton. And sorry, Rhonda, before you start, I should say, please keep comments under 3 minutes.
Elected officials are held to a high standard and are expected to be the watchdogs for taxpayers' money. Boards are the supervisor of the fire chief and the tax dollars. I've lived in this community over 50 years. I've watched St. Helens Fire, now CRFR, since 1986, 37 years. I've stood up when I see wrongdoing in public entities, including the fire district and school district. In 2023, CRFR retaliated against me for requesting public records. At the January 10th, 23 board meeting, Fire Chief Joel Medina reported that CRFR is in such dire financial distress, he will be laying off employees. I immediately wrote Board President Hans Feige asking questions, and I followed up by requesting public records. My request was to find out where the money was spent. I've requested records from St. Helens Fire and CRFR many times over the past 3 decades and attended many public meetings. Instead of receiving public records, which would allow me to research to see if the money was spent appropriately, Joel Medina, Jimmy Sanchez, and other administrative employees, along with board members, retaliated against me. Medina began stating multiple times that he took information to the DA. He stated he wants the DA to look into current employees, past employees, and their family members. This is where the retaliation started. Even board member Hudson made statements at the board meetings about the revelations that he was excited to be disclosed. These threats never bothered me. I wondered how a family member of any employee could have access to any accounts or information at CRFR, but we will soon see. I'm a citizen and taxpayer and have never been employed by St. Helens Fire or CRFR. I was denied public records, but the Oregonian was given records. My personal phone number was written on records request documents. CRFR administrative staff gave my personal phone number to an Oregonian reporter prior to any release of the report. The reporter asked me about items which were released later in the audit. So she was privy to information that no one else was. In the Oregonian, Medina made a quote about me in retaliation and an attempt to cause harm. Joel Medina and Jimmy Sanchez also made derogatory and threatening statements about me to an elected board member on June 30th, 2023. Again, I have never been employed by CRFR, nor does Medina know anything about me. CRFR board has received a vote of no confidence against Medina. CRFR has multiple lawsuits filed against Medina. When the DA did not find anything to further investigate, the past board put Medina in charge of spending taxpayer dollars on retaliation against employees, past employees, and members of the community that requested public records for 3 decades. This board needs to consider how much more risk they are willing to take with Joel Medina as their fire chief. The firefighters have a vote of no confidence with many supporting documents attached. They didn't just make this up. They attached documents that they received under public records. Medina uses tax dollars to threaten, retaliate, and attempt to smear lifelong residents of this community, and the past board supported him. Medina and Sanchez have no idea how to be honest leaders, and documents support that in the vote of no confidence. Is everything Medina and Sanchez say fictitious? Has CRFR been a victim to a scam for Medina and Sanchez's personal gain? Where is the proof in the expert report from the forensic audit? Medina and Sanchez failed to provide the records. If there is a smear campaign, Medina and Sanchez hoped to gain credibility if the accountant did not receive supporting documents. The audit did not include books when Medina was in charge. Where's the proof that Motherway has withdrawn her funds from PERS as stated on page 11? Where is the proof that Nelson requested to withdraw her PERS funds on page 12? If Motherway and Nelson prove this information to be false, is this a reason to terminate all that provided false information to the auditor? Is CRFR responsible for the forensic audit bill if this information proves to be false? How will CRFR rectify this smear campaign? I want all staff that have used CRFR funds for personal use to be charged for their expenses. The visa charges must be reviewed and employees held accountable. How much is it costing taxpayers to operate a maintenance shop? And should CRFR close it and use local mechanics to maintain emergency apparatus to save money? Did the board pre-approve paying for moving expenses for Medina and Sanchez? Did Medina lie about Sanchez's credentials when hiring him at CRFR? Did Smythe know that credentials were false when he sent a CRFR-wide email introducing him as the new finance position with all these credentials? Does the board know if the credentials of Sanchez are valid to be placing him in command of an emergency scene or perform financial duties for a multi-million-dollar district? Who approved hiring Sanchez and paying him double the budget figure of $70,000? All CRFR finance administrators have completed the annual budget. Why is CRFR paying an outside company to complete the budget? In July, CRFR vehicles are still found at the office of Hans Feige after he was removed by voters from his board position. There is something sinister brewing from these individuals and is being organized and completed on CRFR paid time with taxpayers paying for attorneys. This needs to stop with this board. Please consider this a formal complaint against Fire Chief Joel Medina and Jimmy Sanchez, and I can provide this as a written documentation. I'll also say, as I've been going to these meetings for 30 years, I have requested every check written in board packets. Like if a check starts at 101 and they submit them for you to approve and ends at 121, The next time you approve checks, it should start with 122. There should be no gaps. There should be no virtual paying of credit cards and things without you guys seeing that. This has not happened for any of this administration. We aren't given any packet for us to review. I've asked for it under public records as a past financial administrator, and this is where the problem is. I mean, not just here. I received the agenda with all the attachments when Merritt was financial administrator here, and she did attach that information. Payroll wasn't attached, virtual credit cards weren't attached. This is where it gets out of hand. I'm all for reviewing anybody that took money for their own. I want you guys to find that and hold them accountable. But that goes for today. These guys should not be signing checks. 2 board members. There should be no virtual paying of anything. 2 board members. This is where we're in trouble.
On my list is Tammy Magrum. Go on, Mike. Next one I have is Brady Freeheim.
So, unfortunately, there's been over 30 years of scandals associated with this district. And, I'm kind of tired of it, frankly. And it's time to stop it. And I'm hopeful that the 3 of you that are new to this board are going to do that. And I really have confidence that you will. But I do hope that you will continue the financial investigation. Clearly, there's been things that need to continue to be investigated. But I'm also very concerned that there's been a vote of no confidence for the fire chief. I don't know how you have a fire chief that survives that lack of confidence in the people that he's supervising, frankly. And I know that he himself has said that he is the light on the hill. I wish that were true. I hope that is true, and that you have exposed some financial misdoing. I hope that that's also correct. But you've also been accused of some pretty heinous behavior, which may also be true. So they're not mutually exclusive. He could have exposed financial misdoing as well as have done things bad himself. I also want to say that I think it's ridiculous that this board is spending money in arbitration for a contract that you just signed. Pretty simple. You have the attachments. You need to pay the firefighters what you promised them, period. There should be no money spent on attorneys and fees for an arbitration for a settlement that you just agreed upon. The millions of dollars of discrepancies between the payroll that you claim and the registers and the amount of workers' comp claims and the amount that was paid for workers' comps is really unacceptable. I mean, this is like accounting 101. And that just needs to get taken care of. I mean, it needs to be investigated. And I would agree with the new board member who said that, frankly, I think that the release of this information and frankly, the release that there were and people being investigated by the district attorney is really not appropriate. And I'm all for, if everybody knows me, public knowledge and information and releasing it. But I don't think that you smear people in the public until you know what's going on. And I think that's exactly what happened. In particular, Mr. Fletcher was mentioned several times. And a lot of those accusations about overpayment of PERS, and it says, well, there was no actual overpayment. That's a smear campaign.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't happen.
I think we really need the applause, folks. This is not, there's not a win-win in this. So let's have some people here. The last person I have is Matt Chandler.
Matt Chandler, firefighter, paramedic, 15 years here at CRFR. Leadership is not about being in charge, it's about caring for those you're in charge of. Simon Sinek. Since Chief Medina arrived 3 years ago, CRFR has become a place of division between admin and the line, chaos, low morale, intimidation, and a lack of transparency, integrity, and accountability. Multiple firefighter paramedics have either left, are on current hiring lists, or are looking to leave. Never before have we seen an administration so removed or disinterested in taking care of its people to cause this. Reasons: a lack of best hiring or at advertising practices, even after line staff have attempted to help, resulting in more basic EMTs than ever before, increasing the workload on paramedics and senior firefighters. No matter how you attempt to swing it, it's lowering our service level. Dropping a health benefit without warning or notice, failing to honor a contract the board negotiated, signed with a pay scale that they proposed. Poor quality uniforms and people without a second set of turnouts. Nobody that can actually answer HR questions with confidence. Absolutely no effort on admin's part has been made to address morale, culture issues, or to see if there are any underlying issues. It's money or budget over people. It's your job as chiefs to work on your people. Chief, 2 times you have brought up race within the past few months. Once in a board meeting and again in a news article. You clearly do not know your firefighters. Many of us have mixed families, both immediate and extended. I find it a cheap accusation with no regard for the impact that it has on your firefighters and their families. Me personally. Mr. Hudson, in the complaint case, it states that you met with Jennifer Motherway at your home. As an elected official and board member, do you really deem that professional or appropriate? Also states that you told Mrs. Todd that inappropriate behavior are common at the fire department and something to be taken with a grain of salt. Let me make this clear for you and the public here today. Not on my shift and not in my station. If anyone feels uncomfortable, upset, or harassed by behavior, it is our job to change said behavior, not their job to change or to just suck it up. As a father of 2 daughters, firefighter, I'm appalled at your behavior. If you cannot help this board responsibly, resign. Thank you.
List. Correspondence.
There were people that signed up here. I don't know if you used those too.
Hey, did we have?
Amen.
Okay, thank you. Correspondence.
None.
I just need you in the packet.
Okay, so head back towards the station.
We want to consent agenda. This include the budget committee. The leave on the 30th. No, it should include those things. No, you're right. That was only part of the budget meeting, not a, what about that board? Yeah. I haven't seen that. Do we have minutes for the 30th meeting? So no, this is what's in your packet. It will be included.
I have a question on the check. 74-3.
Hang on here, Rick. So. Follow correctly, so. It's a motion, a second, and then discussion.
Okay, so motion to approve the minutes for the board meeting of 6/13/2023 and dash 1.
Motion to have second.
Second.
Now, any discussion, questions, comments on the consent agenda? Go ahead, Rick.
I just was questioning 74313 to Board of Law about the legal representation for $104,000. How long was that? What kind of timeframe is that for?
So that was a resolution that was approved by the previous board voted on, and the time frame is until
What do we get for it?
it's a retainer.
That covered, that was a check for the trust account that covered principally not legal services, but, audit staff for the principal. Based on the estimate of Maria Travis. Legal retainers, Chief Sanchez mentioned that. That's like $10,000, I think the rest of it's forensic audit.
So, okay, so the forensic audit for back to this. Was it the board's initial intent to go from 2016 to 2003? The board's initial intent to go from 2016 to 2020?
What's your timeline that you're given to?
Yeah, that way we.
I guess you, can we ask you that?
Budgeting
Yeah,
for the
yeah.
whole thing?
I'd have to look back at the arrangement letter, but I believe it was up until the time that the new chiefs took it.
Okay. So is this one we will,
That-
or is that?
So we'll bring up new business because as we talked about before, we haven't defined the scope. And that's something we can bring up and vote on as a board.
Okay. I guess my,
We would certainly, as Rob mentioned, we've certainly expand the scope to extend through the present day, as at least two of you and maybe one of the members of the public have suggested.
Is there any other questions on the consent agenda?
I ask questions on the checks.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
So like,
That's part of it.
my question, so like,
Which one?
just on like all of them, so we see, I'll just go to the first two, we got 74280,
Mhm.
and then there's a gap, and then 74288. So what's between, where's one? Yeah, does that make sense? So why is there a gap between 80?
Sometimes checks are printed and we void them, which we can provide those to you.
Okay,
So, or they get printed incorrectly, so we can provide those to you.
okay.
And then the number goes, and then that's what it is.
Is,
But this is everything from the bank statement, that anything that got cashed, this is what got cashed. The other checks that are not in this did not get cashed. They don't, no money was
you
given.
still see them though? 'Cause they-
If you would like to,
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
but there, no money was moved or withdrawn.
Yeah.
This is anything that came out of the,
This is everything's been cleared.
yes.
So that's also reflected in cash flow analysis.
Could we do maybe, these are the clear checks, but these are all the checks that were written, does that make sense? So we can see them all, so the ones that are voided, sure, but that maybe in a different packet, but that way we can still see
Yeah,
it.
those are the ones that might have, the name was wrong.
That's fine, just so, yeah, we can go, I think that would make it very
If you
clear.
want.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Awesome, I think, does that make sense to you guys? Just so we can make sure everything, just with everything that's going on, thank you, that would make it, sweet, that way we'll just say, these are not, clear.
For the transparency we're looking for.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, so you can just have it on, it'll just be a separate,
Pull another packet that says not clear, yeah, I think that would.
and it doesn't mean clear, it means they're not. It's like, so for that number, like you can see the
You can
number.
write, yeah, voided or whatever.
Yeah, they're not gonna,
Maybe if
they
you
won't
could
be
do
used.
it quick, easy. like,
Yeah,
okay,
those
this-
won't be used.
oh, yeah, Perfect,
There's gonna be no money drawn from that.
yes.
The check 74,322 labor law, that's our
I'm sorry, 74 what?
74,320. Second page, that's for the, our labor attorney, that for your, the, union,
Yes, that's for the union.
cost of some of the, arbitration or whatever.
It's labor attorney, yes.
Okay, and then Alaska Board Consulting, I see two of them, 74,353 and 74,355.
Yes,
So two different amounts, 10,212 and 20,000.
that is correct. One was approved by, resolution, from last board. And the other one is for ongoing services that we had approved originally from resolution, beginning back when they started with us back in July of last year. They're an independent CPA. They do all the checks and balances.
I saw them on the budget meeting. So that's for working on last year's budget, preparing the audit for this year's budget, or?
A slew of things and everything, and working in conjunction with, forensic audit as well.
Okay.
On 74331, it's $118 towards the gate letter. I just wanna since it's an employee.
No problem. That's a reimbursement.
Okay. What's
We can provide the reimbursement for you. We actually have that, in our PO system and also do it. You can just like have it. That was reimbursement for office supplies.
So
I took everybody's credit cards away, so if something's needed, they have to go purchase it themselves.
why would we want? Shouldn't we have, so is Kate buying the office supplies and then we're paying for that?
For if something is missing that she needed and for approved to appeal to the purchase order process, then yes, some things have occurred that way because I removed everybody's credit cards.
Okay,
There's only one credit card,
yeah, one credit.
and the decision was made of whose credit card you. So we kept
shouldn't that
mine.
be under the district, shouldn't that be purchased with the district credit card though?
That's all we have is my credit
So
card.
why don't we read? So I'm saying, why wasn't that, I purchased through the district's credit
Well,
card?
the credit card is locked up and secured. And if a purchase is needed and the people that have the keys can't, or it's secured somewhere else, so. She has it, the computer stuff there. What?
So this was the district doesn't pay, in particular for this one. District does not pay a Prime membership or use Amazon in excess in terms of that. So if this computer stand, for instance, to hold up the computers in order for Ms. Leonard to do her job, she was able to purchase it literally for herself out there 2 days and able to do her job with the computer stand to hold both screens and everything. And we deemed it through approval process that was appropriate and that was given, that reimbursement was given for her to do her job with her computers and her desktop. That's specifically what that purchase is, which if you'd like to see it, I would be more than happy to provide it.
I guess at the end of the day, he buys the computer stand, you're getting the itemized detail sheet of what it is, you're getting the receipt.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's approved before the purchase too.
Yeah, she has to submit the request to go ahead and purchase.
Yeah, I get phone calls from my guys, hey, look at this, I have to go get it all paid back.
Right, we can't work on just phone calls. Though. What we do is we have to have hard documentation.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the consent agenda? I just think that everything else on there through there, the ambulance revenue, stuff like that is tracking as normal for the most part.
Yes,
I know there's ups and downs in there, and pays and stuff like that, but
yes, in terms of the EMS revenue and everything through System Design West, it's tracking.
Do we have a budget to act for the every month?
You're talking, so we do get reports from System Design West, but your cash flow actually feeds into that. So anything that comes into our account, anything, every transaction and whatever goes out is in your cash flow.
Awesome. And then, so yeah, so this is everything we spent, and then
Everything you got in terms of revenue and everything that went out.
And as far as the income for the budget, when it comes to System Design West, it was a forecasting projection. So we really needed to have about 12 months of data so that we could effectively project forward. Because they started sort of like mid fiscal budget year to go ahead and do our billing. So that was one of the things that made forecasting very, very difficult. But nonetheless, what we have now is a projection which we presented to the budget committee and to the board at the time about how the revenue was going to play out.
any other questions on the consent agenda? Hearing none, so we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the consent agenda. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? And chief, no chief officer report this year, this one.
Well, we balanced the budget and we submitted it. We presented the strategic plan, which aligns and follows what the budget kind of movement should be to address some of the issues that exist before us. some of the goals and, some of the opportunities and some of the issues, like I said, that we need to address as we go moving forward. That's done. We have 3 people, 3 firefighter paramedics on the list that we're gonna have a civil service board meeting to kind of verify the list, to have them available. We have 1 current vacancy. But we want to have, a current list, so if anything else should happen, we're able to bring them on. And that's all for the chief's report.
Old business, I know there's nothing on here, but I just want to follow a couple of things here from previous meeting. Arbitration date, my understanding 26th month. Do you have location, time, or anything that's set yet?
There's a, I'm not sure, it's like the correspondence with Leo.
Yes, and I'd write. Okay. Right, yeah, we have to follow this. Okay. Also, I had a note, have we get everything going for the bathroom remodel?
That's a problem. It seems that, we advertised twice to try to do the bathroom remodel.
Mhm.
We got 1 bid. That bidder no longer wishes to do business with with Columbia River Fire Rescue based on, some of the things that has happened. And, one of the board members filed a bully complaint against the,
It was in our packet, yes.
yeah, so,
Did
and
you get notice that the address was wrong on the mailing address? Does that matter? We only got 1. Under our bid.
One of the, what the other address is given out and people were contacted, no one wants to.
yeah,
So
we tried
now we're
everything.
still doing another.
We posted it in the newspaper. We tried calling contractors. We tried doing everything. Nobody wants to work with Columbia River Fire Rescue.
So I contacted Bully with that complaint. I have an email in the truck that said that your Renaissance Holdings was not a remodeling contractor. They asked me how I knew they were doing the work, because they were not a registered contract remodeling contractor. That's where that question came from. All the meters.
Old business.
Is it possible can I, call some contractors, plumbing contractors and have them refer them to come up? If they're still.
You have to, so we would have to set up, legally, we have to get 3 bids, so
I get
you
that.
can't, as long as there's no conflict of interest with you, that would have to be something that you would have to, yeah.
Total mechanical, American heating and cooling, and Apollo.
They're commercial contractors. Because we have insurance restrictions as to what we can do with
So
that.
that's not an issue.
And also bully restrictions.
That's not an issue.
You circle back with them offline.
Yep, I'll do that.
Cool. Anything else under old business?
I was just gonna say, I know on the last board meeting on the 30th. I was just gonna say, I know somebody said that they were upset that we weren't attending. I know Welby and I did try to attend, so I just wanted to straighten that out. And we did try to attend the last board meeting. We were not allowed to.
I was online.
I was on.
And I did also, I listened to it. So I just wanted to straighten that out. I did try to attend that.
Thank you.
Yeah, no.
There, all right, so new business. So I have a couple of things I believe we're supposed to do at the July meeting is set up our media outlets of choice that we choose to notify the public of board meetings, for public meetings, and also I believe the date, time, location, what we're gonna use, we need to review those at this time.
Well, we have, limited access. We hope to continue here in association with, CCOM and continue using this whenever we can, unless we have a special meeting or an incident where we have to go. Now, fortunately, we have the ability to attend virtually. So if we don't have the space or a sufficient room to have people attend, then we just have to attend virtually. That's the commonplace we've been following. Right now, we're gonna be talking to CCOM, they're going through some stuff. We're gonna be giving them the dates and then they'll identify the dates that they have available. And if they don't have it available, then we'll find another place to go ahead and have that.
And I believe those both need to be like a resolution, I believe, if you have that for the board, so you have that by the next meeting.
Yes, it's a scheduled date, absolutely.
Thank you. There we go. No, go ahead.
Okay, okay. The arbitration's coming up on the 6th of July. Really need to have representation there, obviously, looking to support our attorney. I would suggest that I would go, negotiate the contract. I would like to ask that Hans, be asked to go if he's able to, and if it's allowed to. And then certainly, the new board members who possibly been education back, they're ready to go. But I'm not sure how many people are going to be allowed.
I was gonna say that's gonna be up to.
Yeah, so, but I think you want somebody that was probably a participant, participate in the creation.
No, absolutely. If only two can go, I'd say you and Welby, or I think that'd be good.
I think we need to have the labor grievance attorney, we need to have that.
The meeting before this, yeah, so we can schedule a meeting for before that 26th, so we can talk about that later. What's the name?
Adam.
Well, just remember that only one or two can go to.
To that meeting? Yes, to the, yeah, without, yes. Or no, what if we had another special board meeting before to the meeting?
Yeah.
Well, that's something that we can discuss tonight, or the 26th, would be a good idea to meet.
Yeah, next week. Who would, that be
You guys have contact with Adam?
So is that you that has to contact Adam and figure out a day?
I do.
No, it's,
Okay.
Any of you can do it.
You guys can do it too, but normally I can do that. for you.
Okay, I can call him. I got his number right here. I'll get that figured out and report back.
But as we said before, once this meeting's over, you don't have authority because you're not a board member once it's
I'm
passed.
just gonna call him and say, hey,
I
dude, how
know,
many
but
days
we
you
need to
got?
go, we need to go through, we can go through the chief though and direct the chief to say, hey, we'd like a special meeting
Did
with
you just
the
say-
board members.
Well, you're welcome to call them and ask them any questions you want individually, as can anybody else on the board. You're going to take the board members call, especially in this situation, but you're right, but Kelly's right. I mean, ideally, and when you go to your new board member orientation training, what you're gonna hear is you act as a board in board meetings, you act on behalf of the board when the board asks you to do something specifically, and you're then authorized by the board in a meeting to go do something specifically, and other than that, the fire chief's the chief
Okay,
executive officer, administrative officer, and you ask him questions in the meantime, or allow the chief to act on behalf of the district. That's what's gonna keep you safe and everybody on the right side of the pocket, or everybody in the right line.
So I think what we need to do is we have the chief contact, Adam and see if he can provide us like a range of a few dates and see if the majority of us can, or one of us, sorry, two of us can meet with Adam free unless we want to do a special board meeting.
Contracts. No, if we can do a special board meeting, I think that'd be optimal. If, okay, for whatever reason the dates don't work, then if Hudson and we can deal with it, I think that'd be good. Okay, so,
The questions I would have is that will be a closed executive session meeting,
yes,
and that meeting can be made virtual if it suits the board and it's more convenient, or it can be in person. How would you like?
I would say the way the ordinance is, whatever. Now, we at least have that discussion. I'm open either way myself.
preferably in person, but
You want to be with them in person?
preferably, but if whatever reason, virtually is the only way to.
I'll let them know I have to be at least 3 dates. And I'll provide them to you, Kelly, and then you can disseminate and figure out how to get it
Okay, thank you.
done.
Always want all business.
So we're doing new business, so.
But I was just gonna see if we could get district emails so that we can communicate with you guys. So that's something we just come down to the office for.
It's something I'll address that with IT. They'll be in tomorrow.